Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's good to be back. It is good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Sorry for the super late notice for today's chat. I only let everyone know we were going live like 15 minutes before the stream, so questions have not built up yet. Viewership has not built up yet. It might take us a little bit to get this chat rolling today. I apologize about that. I rearranged my room and it took me a lot longer than expected, and I'm also not really sure I like it. Now I've got like sun in my eyes and stuff is all sorts of messed up in here, so I may end up changing it back to the way it was before I had like all that open space behind me. I'm sure you guys all know from all of my streams. Thought it would look a little bit better to like change things up, but I'm actually not sure I'm crazy about it. I don't know. You guys let me know, but it does, I don't know, maybe it looks a little better. I don't know. But anyways, that's the main thing that happened there. So I apologize that chat is such late notice. Like I said, right now, not many people here and not much in chat. But I'm sure it's going to build up as people realize that we're live, because we've got some excellent topics to talk about today. I'm actually really excited for this chat because we've got multiple big things we can discuss. Now, probably the biggest for my sort of followers might be around the Xbox financials. Of course, we're going to dive into that. We're going to chat a whole bunch about that. The results are in for last quarter, which was the holiday period. And I will say overall, I think they were pretty underwhelming. And I think that's the way that a lot of people feel. However, what a difference a day can make, because literally the next day I was seeing a lot of a lot of the Xbox fans like pretty bummed out, pretty sad after the financials came out, and a lot of like disarray and people being like, oh man, what's Xbox doing? And then, like I said, what a difference a day can make, because literally the next day I'm seeing unbelievable energization among Xbox fan base because of the Xbox Developer Direct. That seemed to go very well. I consider that show a huge success. So we can talk about that, some of the announcements if you guys want. Hi-Fi Rush we can talk about, which is blowing up for them at the moment, and so much more. They showed Redfall, Forza, we got some release dates on stuff, so we can go into all of that. I want to know your guys' opinions and all of that. Now, before we start getting into your comments and questions, I am going to really quick go over like the overall view of the Xbox financials, because like I said, it was a pretty underwhelming quarter. We just got to be honest about that. You guys know I like to try to be positive. But whenever I sent out my tweet on the earnings, I said, I got to be honest, they're not great results. And that's just because they weren't. That's just the reality of it. Now, this is the overall view that we found out. As we know, Microsoft doesn't go into as much detail as, say, Sony and Nintendo do on their earnings for their video game division. But we did get a decent amount of info out of it. Now, a couple things. First of all, overall gaming revenue dropped 13%. That's a pretty big drop. Xbox content and services dropped by 12%. Now, content and services covers everything in terms of like software, because I saw some people, because let me tie this into it, the only real positive for them out of this was Game Pass subscribers continue to grow. They've said this every single quarter, so I'd love to have a new lifetime update, because like literally every quarter they're saying they're growing, so I'd love to get the number on it, but they still haven't done that. And I had some people asking me, how can content and services go down by 12% if Game Pass subscribers grew? And that's because content and services covers everything, except for like the hardware side of things. It's covering subscriptions. That's going to include Game Pass. It's going to include Xbox Live Gold. It's going to include all of the software sales. That's all part of content and services, so just games being sold. And it also includes all of the DLCs, all the microtransactions, all that stuff. It's essentially everything that has nothing to do with hardware. So it's not going to include controllers. It's not going to include the Xbox system itself, all of that. But even if Game Pass subscribers grew, if like game sales are down and also like DLC sales are down and things like that, it can still decrease even if Game Pass is going up. So that's what happened with content and services, hardware revenue, and this is the most alarming thing to me out of these earnings. If we're going to look at anything here and be like, what is the big negative here? Because all of this is a pretty big bummer, but to me, this is the biggest one. Xbox hardware revenue was down by 13%. This early in the generation, you really don't want to be seeing hardware declines. So there's a whole bunch we can talk about around that, but that to me was the stat that stuck out the most. Like, ooh, you don't want to see that. You do not want to see that. You don't want to start seeing declines in quarters for hardware until you're like, deep into a generation. We're still very early. So to see that, not a great look. However, I don't think this means doom and gloom. So we're going to go into all of this, but let's keep going. First party and third party content declined. This to me is by far the least surprising thing because at least on a software side, Microsoft was going up against a very hard comparable from the year before. Because keep in mind, this quarter last year, they had Forza Horizon 5, which was a massive hit, like seriously, huge giga hit for them. And you had Halo Infinite, which people forget out of the gate was also a huge hit. Now, Halo Infinite, as we know, fell off big time, but at launch, Halo Infinite was huge. So you had a huge launch with Halo Infinite, and you had a huge launch with Forza Horizon 5, and this year they essentially had nothing, right? They just had Pentiment, which Pentiment was super cool, but it's just a small, basically indie-sized game for them. That's not going to be remotely comparable to what Forza and Halo can do combined. So that, to me, that first-party decline, that should be the least surprising thing in the entire world, because all you got to do is look at the releases, right? There was no way that they were going to match what happened last year for first party. And then, like I said, Game Pass subscribers grew. So that's kind of all the negative points there. However, there were some positive things to point out. Satya Nadella did this on the earnings call. Now, Xbox did see record highs in the quarter of Game Pass subscribers. So again, Game Pass subscribers continue to grow. It's the highest it's ever been. Game streaming hours. So xCloud is slowly getting more successful. As we've talked about a bunch, streaming's not the future yet. It's not the thing that's going to replace everything tomorrow, but their streaming is continuing to improve. So they saw streaming hours hit a record high, and they also had a monthly active devices. Now, keep in mind, not users, because they also saw a record of users, but even connected devices. So devices means cell phones. If you're doing streaming, that means the Xbox consoles. They're going to count PC there if it's playing like Xbox games through Game Pass or whatever. So their connected devices, highest it's ever been for Xbox, and their monthly active users saw a record 120 plus million during the quarter, which is actually a huge number. So that's just the monthly active users. So while there is some super negatives in this, right, and we just need to be honest about it, hardware declining, not good. Gaming revenue down by, double digits, not good. Content and services down, not good, right? There are some positives here, and this is part of the reason why I don't want to declare Xbox doom and gloom. In fact, I think Xbox is going to have actually a very strong year this year. I think that Developer Direct was really successful for them, and there's way bigger games coming this year than last year. So let's not proclaim doom and gloom yet, but not a great result. So you guys can ask me anything you guys want about that and so much more. So if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat and we break down the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be a super chat option. You just type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me to the super chat, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. And in terms of housekeeping notes, I don't think I really got anything today, guys. I think we can just rock and roll straight into your comments and questions. So start filling that chat up, because like I said, I know I gave really short notice today on the chat. We don't have as much questions in chat as we normally do when we kick this off, because I usually give an hour notice. Here we only had 15 minutes, so start building that chat up so we have a lot to talk about today. Okay, we've got Joseki kicking us off here off of the top. Hello, Benji. Xbox financial results are, in my opinion, very underwhelming. I'd agree with that. Especially hardware. I would also agree with that. But I'm more concerned about the constant rumors and reports of their mismanagement in their studios. At what point does Phil Spencer run out of free passes? He has been in charge of Microsoft Studios since 2014, and apart from throwing money at the problem by buying publishers, he never really got on top of this recurring issues. Is he avoiding backlash because he knows what to say to gamers? Sorry for the pretty loaded question, but I had Xbox for the past 4 years, and I'm kind of just over the just wait for things to come out phase. So there's a lot here. Some stuff I absolutely agree with, Joseki. Some stuff that I probably would have agreed with you, like, more on if it wouldn't have been literally for 1 day later on the developer direct. So let's break this down because there's a lot here. It's not a super loaded question, Joseki, because I know it might seem that way to some Xbox fans, but I think you are making some really good points here. So a couple things. Let's go one at a time. Like you said, the financial results for that last quarter, I'd agree. It's an underwhelming quarter. Like, there's just no way to other way to put it, right? Whenever you have double-digit drops in essentially every category, that's just not great. I'm sure Phil Spencer himself would tell you the same thing, right? No company wants to see double-digit percentage drops across the board for a quarter. So there's just no other way to phrase it. They had unfortunately not a great holiday quarter. Now, in terms of the mismanagement within their studios, I also agree. I think there is some truth to that, absolutely. I think it's very clear, for example, 343 had major management chain issues. There's some other studios as well that very well may be. We don't know for sure, but some of these games are taking so unbelievably long to come out that you have to wonder, right? So all of that stuff I absolutely agree with. However, I do think we need to point out some studios that clearly are doing really well. One example is going to be Tango. I mean, who saw Hi-Fi Rush coming, right? They put out Ghostwire Tokyo just last year. And I know that Ghostwire Tokyo is a game that not everyone liked. I personally absolutely loved it. Got the Platinum Trophy on it. But again, it's not going to be a game for everyone. But to even have 1 year later, right? It's literally the next year. You have Hi-Fi Rush hitting only a year apart. You know, that's a huge positive. So Tango's a studio you got to shout out that they're doing great things. Obsidian, we got to point out Obsidian, right? They're putting out tons of stuff. Outer Worlds wasn't that long ago. And then they had Pentiment. And now we got Avowed on the way. And the Outer Worlds 2 on the way. They're another studio that seems to be running really, really well. So there are some definite wins within these Xbox first-party studios as well in terms of getting games out. But Joseki, you're right. 343 clearly had management issues. There's some other studios. You have to wonder if there's some management issues going on there. The Initiative, for example, and a few others. So a bit of a mixed bag there. And like we talked about, I think 1 or 2 chats ago, it's something that Xbox is really going to have to hammer hard on because Phil can't be everywhere whenever you have this many studios. So they really got to get those management chains lined up really good. Now, in terms of the Phil question, right? How's he avoiding the backlash? You know, you're tired of hearing from Xbox, just wait for things to come out. I think that's completely fair. You're tired of hearing just wait for things to come out because that has been a thing for many years, right? I love Xbox, but it's been a thing every single year. Next year is going to be the year where Xbox takes off. Next year is going to be the year Xbox takes off, and it still hasn't happened. However, I do think this is the year, Joseki. I think this is the year. I know everyone says that every year, but we actually have release dates and some games out. Hi-Fi Rush is a massive win. I think this game is going to become a new franchise for Xbox. I think it's going to be that successful. So you had that, which was awesome. You've got Redfall now with a date. We'll have to see how the quality is. But again, it's a dated game coming pretty darn soon. Forza looks unbelievable. I mean, those visuals were like some of the craziest I've ever seen in my entire life. Even you saw the Digital Foundry guys just praising it. I'm sure they're going to do a breakdown of the footage soon. You know, Forza looks absolutely incredible. You got Starfield hitting this year. Rumors that Hellblade 2 could be this year. I think this is the year where Xbox fans can really be like, yeah, we got the games. Like, you know what I mean? I don't mean that in a competition way, like, oh, Xbox was better this year than PlayStation or Xbox was better than Nintendo or anything like that. But I just mean I think this is going to be the year for Xbox fans. And I know we say that every year, but this year it's a lot more solidified because we already had Hi-Fi Rush hit and we also have multiple games with release dates on the way, plus a couple more that are clearly this year. Wherever they land, there's no doubt Forza's this year. There's no doubt Starfield's this year. Hopefully Hellblade as well. So I think this is going to be the year where Xbox fans can really be like, we had a steady release of games this year that we really liked, and the first party delivered. Again, who knows how the quality will shake out on some of these, but I think there's going to definitely be enough quality there that Xbox fans will be happy. Now, the question is, can they keep that up, right? Is 2024 going to look like 2023 in terms of a nice amount of releases? We will have to see. They're going to have to prove that. You can't give Xbox the benefit of the doubt on this because there's been some years like 2022 where there's just like nothing there, right? I'm optimistic about it, but we can't just give them the benefit of the doubt that we can assume that's going to happen every year. But I do think we have enough evidence right now already that 2023 will be a strong year for Xbox. Again, doesn't mean it's going to be their best year ever or better than PlayStation or Nintendo. I'm not going to go down that road, but I think a solid year. I think it's very obvious they'll have a solid year this year. So, again, though, I actually just think, I would have been a lot more I don't want to say super negative, but I would have been a lot more cautious about Xbox. If I would have done this chat literally before the developer direct, I would have been like, I don't know, man. But Hi-Fi Rush is such a huge win for them, and I think the other games look excellent. So I think they got a good year coming. I think we had a couple super chats hit. Let me hit those super chats. We did. We had 3 different ones. Thanks, guys. Highlander here dropping a 5. Thank you so much, Highlander. Great to see you, Benji. It's great to see you, Highlander. The lawsuit by the Activision investors was dismissed with prejudice. The investors have to pay the legal fees. Thoughts? So I haven't dived into this as much as other people would have, right? Like Hogue, for example. I'm sure Hogue, if unfortunately our thoughts are with Hogue, he would have been doing an amazing job of breaking this all down. So I actually haven't had a chance yet, Highlander, to read up completely on all of this. Now, this was the lawsuit about... Let me see. Was this the one about, like, misleading stuff? Or the insider trading? Drop it. Don't do a super chat. Highlander, let me know which lawsuit you're talking about. Because there's so many Activision lawsuits right now, it's hard for me to keep track. Right? There's been ones about the way employees are treated. There's been ones about investor stuff. There's a whole bunch. So let me know a little bit more of the details and I can comment on it into the chat. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to read up on this story as much. I did see it get posted, but I didn't get a chance to read up on it. So give me a little bit more context in the chat. Don't use the super chat. Just let me know and I'll go right back to this. Benji here with a 5. Hi, Benji. Microsoft did a great job with studio acquisitions, but why aren't they more aggressive with third-party marketing exclusives like Call of Duty or Hogwarts? I have a feeling that Sony's just being way more aggressive in that category than Microsoft is. I think Microsoft's still trying to figure their first party out. Now, I don't know that for sure, but if you look, Sony does have a ton of marketing deals on what will probably be huge games. As you know, Call of Duty has a marketing deal. Hogwarts is tracking to be literally unbelievably big. People are going to be utterly shocked how big Hogwarts Legacy launch is. And also, we know that Sony has a marketing deal on Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, which I think there's a real chance that game's huge as well. So definitely Sony seems to be locking in the bigger marketing deals. I think Microsoft right now is more focused on first party and also Game Pass deals. So, there's not infinite money. Microsoft has a ton of money. But if they have the option of, let's say, a marketing deal on a multi-platform game or locking in a Game Pass day one deal where it launches day one on Game Pass, they're going to want to spend that money more on the Game Pass game than getting, because some of these marketing deals are very expensive, guys. We're talking millions and millions of dollars for like a really big game. So if Microsoft can, and I'm not saying this is going to always be the case, but if Microsoft can save some millions off of one of these massive marketing deals and instead get like a game launching day one on Game Pass, I think they're going to go more for that than they are a multi-platform marketing deal. Now, we can debate if that's the right strategy or not, right? Hogwarts Legacy being associated with PlayStation is probably very good for them, right? Avatar, if it's a big hit, probably very good to be associated with PlayStation. So we can go a little bit into how we feel about that. I am surprised. I will tell you, Benji, I'm very surprised Microsoft did not pursue a marketing deal for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. If I was Microsoft, I would have been very aggressive about that. They had the marketing deal for Fallen Order, and the first one was a massive hit. It appears no one has a marketing deal on Jedi Survivor. There hasn't been anything in the trailers like play on PlayStation or play it, on Xbox or, exclusive items yet that I've seen. So it appears maybe EA just didn't want to do that, right? Maybe they didn't want a marketing deal on this. You never know. I mean, it seems weird to me that EA wouldn't pursue that, but A, maybe they just didn't want to, or B, maybe they were asking a fortune because the first game was such a hit. I don't know. I don't have any info on that. But I think that's probably part of it, Benji. They're spending so much money on, like you said, acquisitions. They spent a ton of money buying a ton of studios the last few years. They're also clearly spending money to get all of these Game Pass deals on games. There's only so much money, right? There is a limit. So that's probably what's going on. Sony has a little bit more money to throw around specifically on marketing for multi-platform games, and Microsoft's spending that money in other places. That'd be my guess, at least. Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat. And of course, Matt always coming in with the positivity that I love so much. Matt with a 2. 2023 is going to be a life-changing year for you. Matt, dude, look at that kindness. I appreciate it so freaking much, Matt. You always lift me up and make me feel so good on this chat. I think 2023 is going to be a good year for me, man. I really do. I'm hopeful at least, right? You never know. I'll tell you what. I'll just be honest. Don't worry. I won't harp on the song. I've been struggling a bit lately. I've been just, a lot of anxiety and depression kind of creeping back again, which is unfortunate. You guys know I always struggle with that, but this time of year is always hard on me. I just don't do well in winter, and it's winter here, and it's cold, and God, I can't wait for spring and summer. I'm like a summer child, guys. If it was up to me, I would want it to be summer all year round. I could have no problem living in Las Vegas, for example, where it's just hot all the time. I would have no problem with it. But I appreciate that, Matt, because like I said, I've been struggling a bit recently, if I'm just going to be honest with you. But I do think this will be a good year for me and the channel and for Twitter because the game releases. 2023 looks like it's going to be an incredible year for games, and considering I cover games, I think it'll be really strong. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Awesome. Okay, super chats are cleared. Thank you so much, guys. Let me see. I'm still waiting. Highlander, remember to drop that additional context. Oh, wait, there it is. About investors being misled about the harassment allegations. Okay, thank you. So that was the one. So it was about harassment. So what happened is that it's been dismissed. Interesting. And the investors have to pay the legal fees. Ooh. Now, I am not by any means a lawyer or anything like Hogue is. So someone who knows law is going to have a way better context on this. I will say that's a bit surprising to me, though, because it seems pretty obvious that, Bobby Kotick and other people did as much as they could to kind of hide what was going on in terms of harassment. And that did affect the stock price, right? Once all these allegations came out and it all became public, you did see hits to the stock. So I am surprised. I will tell you that, Highlander. I am surprised it was dismissed. I would have thought that they did have a pretty good case there. So that's my thoughts on Highlander. I can't give you like the super lawful, I'm an expert in this field details like Hogue could. I will say it's a surprise though. I would not have thought that would get dismissed because I did, whenever I saw that, thought they had a strong case because it's very clear that the allegations are true. There's just way too much smoke, right? We've talked about this before. You always want to believe people that are making accusations. You want to take that very seriously, but it's also a bit of a different situation whenever there's only one person accusing of something because you need a lot of proof in that case, right? We still need to take that accusation very seriously, but we also need to have some legitimate proof in terms of legally speaking. But whenever there's this much, right, it wasn't one person, it was dozens and dozens of people coming forward. Clearly that's enough where you can be all right, these allegations are legitimately obviously true. I thought they had a strong case there. So that is surprising to me. I will say that. It is a surprise that was dismissed. Yeah, Highlander basically saying Bobby and the board devalued the stock. I agree with that. I would agree with that. That's a surprise to me. I will say that, Highlander. I'm very surprised. But, I'm not a lawyer. Forzathon is back. Benji, are you hi-fi rushing like me? I am. I've played the first 2 levels of this game, and it is amazing, guys. It is literally such a win for Xbox. Such a win. Like, it's crazy how much of a win this is. I made a tweet, and I stand by it 1,000%. Now, I haven't beaten this game. You know, maybe something it would have to be a radical change, and like towards the end of this game, like maybe it falls off a cliff in quality, but I'm highly doubtful. Even just playing through the first 2 levels, the quality is blowing me away. I mean, this is one of the craziest shadow drops I've ever seen, and I even made a tweet about it. I was like, it's crazy that this was a shadow drop. And I don't mean that Microsoft made a bad decision, because if you look at how much attention the shadow drop got, it's crazy. I made a tweet saying how it was trending for 12 consecutive hours in the top 10 in the US. That's nuts. You don't see that sort of thing for a game announcement. Usually a game gets announced, and if it's a big game, it'll trend top 10 for like, you know, an hour or 2, and then it falls off. This thing was trending for 12 straight, and it might have even been longer, but I went to bed. It was trending top 10 for 12 straight hours. I have to think the shadow drop is part of that, and also the quality. It's crazy. I'm telling you, if you haven't played this game, you might think, oh, it's $30 and it's a shadow drop. This must be like some small little... Dude, it's not. The quality's nuts. It feels like a AAA game. Like, it legitimately does. I doubt it was, considering the $30 price tag, right? Clearly, it didn't cost them a AAA budget, or else they wouldn't have charged $30 for it. But, like, the actual, in terms of quality, insane. The visuals are gorgeous. Screenshots do not do this game justice. The animations are just beautiful. I mean, it looks like at times while you're playing it, and cutscenes, I mean, it looks like it could be like literally like an animated movie type thing. It's crazy how good the animation is on this. Like, the style and humor's on point. It's super stylized, so I know some people might be afraid this is like Borderlands style humor. It's not at all. I mean, they do a little bit of humor, but it's not like that irreverent, in your face type of thing at all. It's more just like stylized with a bit of humor. It's excellent. I mean, Hi-Fi Rush is such a win for Xbox. It's incredible. Like, it's literally one of the best first-party games in years, and I stand by that. I didn't say number 1, right? There's been some great games in the last few years from Xbox, right? Pentiment was a great game. Other than that, 2022 was rough. Forza Horizon 5 was an excellent game. I think Gears 5 is a super good game. But there's not a doubt in my mind Hi-Fi Rush is one of the best first-party games Xbox has had in years. So it's pretty crazy. And yeah, I am playing it, and it's excellent. Timmer, Benji, hope you're doing well. No question today. I'm doing great. Good to see you there, Timmer. Gamefire saying Hi-Fi Rush is taking Steam by storm more than Forspoken did. Well, its concurrent players isn't super high on Steam, but we do need to take Steam concurrent players with day 1 Game Passes with a massive grain of salt. So, like, for example, let's look at where Hi-Fi Rush is on Steam right now. Last I checked, it was only at like 2,000 concurrent players, which, to be honest, it sounds very low, right? If this game was not on Game Pass, I would say that that is a very low number. But let me give you an example about why any game, it doesn't matter. If there's a game that's going to be launching day 1 in Game Pass, we got to take these Steam concurrent player numbers with a massive grain of salt. So let me really quick check Hi-Fi Rush. Last I checked, it was like around 2,000, which sounds low. 2,206. Not a massive number, to be honest with you. Not at all. In fact, it's pretty small. That's the sort of number you kind of see for indie games. However, the reason why I want to point out, you got to take this stuff with a massive grain of salt whenever it's a day 1 Game Pass title. High on Life, the Steam all-time peak was only 11,000. Now, again, quite a bit higher than Hi-Fi Rush. That game also, as we know, blew up massively on TikTok, and it also had a long marketing cycle ahead of it. Hi-Fi Rush was a shadow drop. So we need to see how Hi-Fi Rush climbs, over the coming days. Today already is peaking much higher than yesterday. But to get back to what I'm saying, like why we got to take this with a grain of salt, like in terms of the total player number, the all-time peak for High on Life is only 11K. That is like not an impressive number, I'm going to be honest with you. For like an indie game, 11K is like okay, but like compared to like a big release, not at all. Not at all. In fact, like let's look at Forspoken. Forspoken peaked higher than High on Life did. Forspoken's all-time peak is 12,000, higher than High on Life. But, as we know, High on Life was an absolutely massive hit. Massive. The biggest game ever on Game Pass, which has been around for years now. The biggest single-player third-party launch ever to hit the platform. So, don't pay too much attention to the Steam concurrent stats for Hi-Fi Rush. Still worth looking at. Any bonus sales right now is just a plus. I'm sure Microsoft will take all the sales they can get. But I wouldn't be surprised if the actual player numbers for Hi-Fi Rush on PC right now are 10 times higher than what it looks. Especially considering, as we know from what Phil has said openly, PC Game Pass is growing much faster than console Game Pass. So, it's cool to see. I'm glad the game seems to be selling okay. I wouldn't say it's selling great on Steam, but I would say okay. But again, don't look at just that player number and think, oh, that's the total amount of people playing this game on PC. No. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 10% of the total player base. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Abdel114. Monster Hunter Rise top 5 Game Pass most popular. Yeah, Monster Hunter Rise is doing great. I was going to make a tweet about it, but I was waiting to see if Monster Hunter Rise could hit top 3 on console, because I thought there was a real chance it could get there with how it was climbing. Let's see where it's at now, because it was top 3 on PC and on cloud, but it hadn't hit top 3 on console yet. But let me see if that's changed. Nope, not yet. But it's still doing great. Like you said, it is top 5 on console, and it's actually even better on PC and cloud. On PC right now, it is, I think, top 3. Yep, it's number 3 on PC, and on cloud, it is number 3. So yeah, Monster Hunter Rise is doing very good on Game Pass. Very good. I'm hoping maybe that'd be very cool to see it break into top 3 on console, but even top 5 is great. Any game that's getting into the top 5 on Game Pass, it's a very good launch because it's usually dominated. I kind of try to explain this to people. The top 5 on Game Pass is usually like all big multiplayer service games. Like, let's look on console right now. On console, the top 5 most popular, besides Rise, it's Minecraft, which is, of course, an evergreen that's literally always there. Like, just always. It is Forza Horizon 5, which is, again, an evergreen with multiplayer that's literally always there. It's Rainbow Six Siege, which is a giant multiplayer service game that's always there. It's FIFA, which, you see what I'm saying? It's always these big, huge service multiplayer games. So any game that you see break into that top 5... it's a very good launch. Very good. Even top 10 on Game Pass is really solid. But if you can break into that top 5, it means you had a great launch on Game Pass. So yeah, Monster Hunter Rise doing very good. Deno, Benji looking like he's going to rip out of that shirt. I've added a lot of muscle. It depends on the angle. Sometimes I look skinny and small. Sometimes I look like I got some muscle. But yeah, I've added a lot. I'm the heaviest I've ever been right now while still being lean. I've been heavier while, not being in as good of shape. But right now I'm the heaviest I've ever been while still being very lean. I have visible abs right now. Doesn't mean I have a full six-pack, but you can't see my abs. And I've never weighed this much while still being lean. So it's pretty cool. I've been working hard. I've made a lot of progress in this last year. In the last year, I've added over 20 pounds. In a year. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. And I'm actually, if anything, I might be leaner than I was then. So, I've made a lot of progress, yeah. Some of that will be water weight. It won't all be muscle because I take creatine. Creatine makes you hold more water. So, I'm not telling you I added 20 straight pounds of muscle in the last year, but it's a lot. I've added a lot. I think there was a super chat. Let me see. Couple super chats. JCat, thanks for helping mod. It seems that there have been some spicy stuff in chat. Thank you for moderating. I don't know what they did, but I'm seeing a lot of deleted messages. So I don't know. Maybe some console war stuff or maybe someone being mean to me. But either way, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, JCat, for helping mod the channel. You're amazing. Helps clean the chat up and make things good. It's unfortunate that that people like to console war. I find it really weird. I don't know if that's what it was. Maybe they're just being mean to me, but that's fine. I'd rather them just being mean to me than console warring. Oni X with a 2 super chat. Crazy how Xbox saves the cash on marketing with Game Pass. You know, this is an interesting thing, Oni. So, I don't know if what we saw out of Hi-Fi Rush would be possible without Game Pass. And what do I mean by that? I don't know that you could shadow drop a game and have it have near the kind of engagement that we're seeing out of Hi-Fi Rush if the only way to buy it, or the only way to play it, was to buy the game. I'm sure people would have been excited. I'm sure it would have, had some sales. But what made this combo so potent for Xbox was that they could drop this announcement literally with zero marketing. That's one thing people need to keep in mind. The crazy thing about a shadow drop, us that are in the gaming community, that are always checking Twitter about games. I mean, let's be honest. If you're in my chat, you're hardcore in terms of following this stuff, right? I don't have casuals in my chat, right? In my YouTube feed. I might have some kind of casual people on my Twitter because my Twitter is so much bigger. But if you're here, if you're watching me, you're hardcore. That's just the reality. You're one of the hardcore gamers. A lot of casuals do still depend on marketing. That's why you still see huge marketing budgets for a lot of these games, because someone that only buys, and people forget, there's millions and millions and millions of people like this. People that buy like 2 or 3 games a year. I know that might sound surprising to some of us. I buy a ton of games a year. I'm sure a lot of you guys here buy, multiple games a year. Some of you might only buy 2 or 3, but you're still clued into the news cycle. But there's a ton of people that buy like Call of Duty, Madden, and maybe like 1 other or 2 other games per year. There are tons of people like this. And a lot of those people still depend on traditional marketing to let them know a game's even out. Whether that's a commercial on TV, you still see, a lot of times big video games get commercials during sports games. During the NBA, during FIFA, during the NFL, you'll see big commercials for that, because a lot of people don't know about these games unless they see the marketing for them. They're not checking Twitter to see what's being announced. They're not checking, Game Informer or GameSpot or Reset Era or IGN. They just casually play games. So the fact that they were able to drive this kind of momentum with Hi-Fi Rush, it's really tied into Game Pass, because they can announce this and you can go in with zero cost and you can tell all of your friends about it, which is just like crazy natural marketing, right? Like all those people with Game Pass, because we know there's millions. In fact, there's tens of millions. Who knows if they've hit 30 million yet, but we know for sure that they're over 20 million. That's still that many people, and not all of them will play Hi-Fi Rush, but I assure you it's probably going to end up millions of people play Hi-Fi Rush in the first week. I can almost be certain of this. All of those people can now tell people about it, and they might not have had that many sales. In fact, I don't think they would have had near that sort of level of sales. So it is an interesting scenario for Xbox that I think they are the best in position to shadow drop games. Now, we can debate if, shadow drops will always have this sort of success. Another reason why Hi-Fi Rush is enjoying this kind of momentum is because it's a freaking great game. If they would have shadow dropped Hi-Fi Rush and it sucked, a lot of people would have played it, probably in the first couple hours, but then they would have been telling people, hey, this game ain't good. Like, don't play it really. It's the 1-2 combo. They shadow drop this thing and people freaking love it. So they're telling everyone to go play this game. So yeah, it's interesting. Xbox is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best in position to shadow drop games, specifically like that specific avenue, because of Game Pass, because it's just so easy to instantly try that game. So yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting. I won't be surprised if Xbox tries to do this again. I don't think they're going to be shadow dropping ever a giant AAA game. You're not going to see the next Gears get shadow dropped, right? Like I said, marketing cycles for big giant games are still very, very important. But some of these smaller projects, yeah, if I was Xbox, I would think about shadow dropping some of this stuff. Nothing big, but these like smaller size projects, it's a pretty effective marketing tool. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. With what has been announced for the PSVR 2 games that are launching PSVR 2, do you see this selling more than on PS4 VR? I've gone back and forth on PSVR 2. I have no idea how to read PSVR 2, if I'm going to be honest with you, Highlander. I got no idea. There was a time whenever like the specs and stuff were first being announced that I was pretty bullish on PSVR 2. Then they announced that price tag, and I was pretty worried about it, but I was like, I think it'll be better supported than PSVR 1 was. So I was like, the thing I had said back then was I was like, I think long term, right? I didn't say like necessarily at launch. I was like, I think long term that PSVR 2 will probably outsell PSVR 1 because the quality is so much better, and I had a feeling it would be better supported. However, as we've gotten closer to launch, the buzz is nearly non-existent. Like dude, it's low. I talk about it multiple times now. The metrics around PSVR 2 are just so low. Whether it's trailer views, tweet likes, whatever, they're just so low. I have no idea how to read PSVR 2, Highlander. I've got quite literally no idea. So whatever prediction I would make for you on it in terms of like lifetime sales, because I think that's what you're asking me, considering you're asking, is it going to sell better than PS4 VR? I will still go in the camp that over the course of the entire generation, I'll still err on the side that it does outsell the original PS4 VR, because that one honestly did not sell that much, right? It was one of the most successful VR platforms. We can't say the most anymore because Quest 2 is clearly the most successful, but it's one of the most successful VR headsets, but it still wasn't huge numbers. But I don't know that it'll sell as fast out the gate. That might be something that takes quite a bit of time. I don't know, though. Again, Highlander, I could be 1,000% wrong on this either way. Maybe it sells faster than PS4 VR, or maybe it doesn't outsell lifetime. I got no idea. It's so hard to read. But, if I'm forced to make a prediction, I'll still go that over the whole generation, it eventually does, because I just still think the quality will be so much better, and I still think it'll probably get better support, but we'll see. And then Highlander says, JCat needs a raise. Great job, JCat. Well, I appreciate it, guys. JCat volunteers to help me. I cannot tell you how appreciative I am of it. I don't have time during the chat to go through and clean up this stuff. JCat's seeing it way before me because I'm responding to questions. So, guys, cannot thank JCat enough. Like, seriously, guys, thank JCat. For helping mod this channel, because it is such a huge help that I know we all appreciate very, very much. So, JCat, you rock. George Corona III with the 5 super chat. And yeah, just don't troll and don't console war in the comments. I didn't see what got, modded, but that's it, guys. You guys just don't be mean and don't console war. That's really all you've got to do. George Corona III with a 5 super chat. With the product increase and Series S being as low as $200 over Xmas, truly shocked at the mediocre hardware result for Xbox. What gives? Yeah, it's not great, right? We just got to be very honest about it. The hardware result, not good for Xbox. Now, there's a couple things, because I had some people ask me about this. They were like, is it just revenue? Is it just units? Is it just because Microsoft slashed the price that it fell down? Microsoft themselves said it was down in revenue and units. So we know it actually did sell less than this quarter last year, right? Now, we don't know how much less, right? We know that revenue dropped by 13%, right? Was it 12 or 13? Let me double check. I want to say 13, but yes, 13%. Now, we know revenue did. I believe that units would not have been 13% down. The main reason I believe that is because of the price cuts that were very aggressive, which were not around last year. So that is going to impact revenue hugely, right? If Series S is the platform that's primarily selling right now, which we know it is, because I don't know what's going on with Microsoft and Series X. That's a discussion point that not many people are talking about. Guys, Microsoft is doing, I'm just going to be blunt, a horrendous job of shipping Series X consoles. I don't know what the answer is for them, but they have freaking got to improve it, because Sony is so far out in front of them now in terms of producing PS5 compared to Series X, right? I'm not saying they're so far in front with Series S and X combined, because they are still ahead even in that category right now for shipping. But the gap between PS5 and Series X is astronomical. Like, dude, Microsoft, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not telling you it's easy. You guys gotta figure something out with Series X, because the shipments on Series X are just atrocious. They're barely shipping anything. They're barely shipping Series X consoles right now. It's almost all Series S. And we know that was heavily price cut during the holidays. So that is going to impact, that revenue number by quite a bit. But we also know that units were down. I don't know exactly how many units, but we know they were down. So just keep that in mind. It wouldn't have been 13%, but the units were still down. And either way, you don't want to see that. You do not want to see revenue declining on hardware this early in a gen, and you also don't want to see units declining by this early in a gen. You know what I mean? So yeah, we just got to be honest. The hardware result's not good. I'm going to be honest with you guys though as well. I do think 2023 is going to be a pretty great year for them. So, I doubt they outsell PS5 this year. I've been pretty adamant about that PlayStation 5 is going to be the best-selling console of 2023. I stand by that 100 million %. Yes, I think PS5 is going to outsell Switch this year. I know Nintendo's being pretty bullish about some of their hardware shipment forecasts this upcoming year, but I'll be pretty shocked if PlayStation 5 does not end 2023 as the worldwide best-selling platform. But either way, I do think 2023 overall will see a big increase over 2022 for Xbox. But we just got to be honest. That hardware number's not good. You're right on, George Corona. It's not good. It's not a good hardware number for that quarter. It just wasn't. Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat. Here we go. This lets me know you're an MMA fan like me, Matt. And I knew that before, but it's funny. With a 2 super chat, thoughts on the abomination that is Power Slap. It's a complete joke. So I won't go on this for too long for people that are only here for gaming. But basically, Dana White, the UFC president, he started a Power Slap league where it's dudes just slapping each other for money, essentially. Now, I know that might sound kind of funny on the surface, like, haha, guys slapping each other, but these guys get, legitimately hurt very, very badly. I can only imagine the brain trauma that these guys are enduring, and you might be like, Benji, how can you say that whenever you love boxing and you love MMA, where guys experience a lot of head trauma? And that's a fair point, except for what I will say with that is there is a form of defense, right? You can dodge shots, you can block shots, you at least have a chance. Power slap, it's like you're just signing up for brain trauma. These guys, I can only imagine a ton of them are going to get CTE, and probably very, very bad CTE in the future, which is going to ruin their lives. Now, I am of the belief that people, can make their own decisions in life. That's my response to people that tell me about combat sports, because I sometimes have people push back and they'll be like, Benji, how can you love MMA? These guys are injuring themselves or hitting each other. And I say, they're grown adults. It's their choice. If that's what they want to sign up for, then that's what you sign up for. I don't think any of that combat sport should be outlawed. I think it's completely crazy. If you're signing up to do it and it's your own choice, it's your decision in life. I think you should be allowed to do it. However, I don't think someone like Dana White or giant companies like this should be encouraging something like Power Slap, because I think it's just completely, these dudes are going to be ruined later in their lives, more probably than boxers and even more than MMA fighters, because it's just straight up brain trauma, with no defense. Now, maybe they get slapped less, so maybe it will end up where they don't. But yes, I agree with you, Matt Duffy. I think it's a complete joke that Dana White himself is doing this. I think it's a joke. Now, if someone's watching this and they love Power Slap, more power to you. I won't tell you don't watch it, because I watch combat sports myself. If you love watching it, then watch it. I'm not telling you don't watch it. Just my personal opinion, definitely not something that Dana White should be throwing his money behind. Reverse World with a 2 super chat. Did a shadow drop help Hi-Fi versus months of marketing? In this specific case, Reverse World, I think it did. Now, again, I'm seeing a lot of people now being like, everything should be shadow dropped. Look at how successful this was. Like I was saying earlier, Reverse World, it's not going to work for every game. You can't shadow drop Gear 6 and expect it to perform as well as it would with a good marketing cycle behind it, because the casuals will just not know at launch that it's there. Just like I think a lot of the casuals still don't know Hi-Fi Rush is there. I think this is going to be one of those things that builds over the next week or two. But in a game like this, that's a smaller size, smaller budget, and Microsoft and Tango must have been very bullish on the quality. I think they knew they had a winner on their hands. If you're that confident the game's great, it can be a great marketing tool for specific cases. So again, I want to be a little cautious, guys. We shouldn't say every shadow drop at all. It's all going to have amazing word of mouth and marketing, and it's just going to push all these games to huge visibility. It's not going to always work. It's a case-by-case basis. But in the specific case of Hi-Fi, I do think this helped, because it was such a stylized game. You could have had some people, if they marketed it for months, being turned off by the stylization. They might have been like, I'm just not really feeling this, and had a lot of trepidation behind it. What worked so well for this is they could just drop it. You could immediately go in and see for yourself. And most people, if you look at the Steam reviews, right? Like I said, we can't just look at Steam reviews for player counts, but you can't just look at Steam for player counts, but if you even look at the reviews on Steam, they're like crazy. Last I checked, it was at 99% positive with hundreds of reviews in. So it was like that perfect storm. I think Hi-Fi Rush was a perfect storm of the game being super high quality, the budget being less risky than a AAA game, and then that shadow drop just getting everyone to try it immediately. Yeah, I think it did. I think Hi-Fi Rush did better as a shadow drop than it would have with months of marketing, but that's not going to be the case with every game, right? Only certain times is something like this going to work out. And I saw a lot of people being like, Pentiment should have done this. What's interesting? I don't know if Pentiment would have worked as well as a shadow drop, because Pentiment is a bit of a slow burn. I loved Pentiment, but if you play Pentiment, it's not one of those things that's like immediately engaging, like in the first, 20 minutes. It's good, but you're playing like a slower, narrative, a lot of reading. I don't know that Pentiment would have done the same thing as Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush, literally within like 2 minutes of starting this game, you're playing something really cool. Like, honestly. After the first cutscene, you're like, dude, this is pretty freaking rad. Like, it's immediately engaging because of like how stylized it is, the faster gameplay. It was a perfect one for this specific case. Perfect. All right. Super chats are cleared. Thank you for all those super chats, guys. Where are we at with the free questions? Zid. Hey, Benji, played about 4 hours of Hi-Fi Rush, and I already would love to see the IP expanded. Yeah, I think this will be a new franchise for Xbox. Whenever I'm talking about how I think Hi-Fi Rush is doing really well, that doesn't mean I think this is the next Halo, guys. Doesn't mean I think it's the next Forza. But I definitely think this will be a new franchise for Xbox. I really, really do. A, because of the quality, and B, I think people just really dig it, like in general. I do think, Zid, I am very confident this will be a new franchise for Xbox. Again, don't expect like Hi-Fi Rush 2 is going to be the next, Forza Horizon-sized game, We need to be a little cautious about that sort of thing. But Zid, I am very confident you'll see a sequel to this. I'm like very, very, very confident you'll see it. It's going to be a new franchise for them. I'm pretty darn positive about it. So great to see for Tango. Like, what a crazy thing for Tango, because I feel like Tango was maybe the Bethesda studio that had the least hype from Xbox fans whenever Bethesda was acquired, out of like the more single player size stuff, right? I saw tons of hype around Bethesda Game Studios, and I saw tons of hype around Machine Games, and tons of hype around id Software, right? Everyone was talking about these sorts of studios, and like, imagine what id's gonna make, and imagine what, Machine Games and Bethesda's gonna make. And you saw like hardly anyone be really talking about Tango. And then out of nowhere, man, Tango just drops this game, like literally out of nowhere, and people love it. What a success story for Tango. I can only imagine how thrilled they are, because Evil Within 2, we just got to be honest, didn't sell well. Ghostwire Tokyo, it does not appear sold that well. I loved Ghostwire Tokyo. If you're an Xbox fan and that game is going to be coming, I personally think you should be very excited for Ghostwire Tokyo, but it's not a game that clicked with everyone. I loved it, but not everyone did. And again, wasn't a huge seller. So you had Tango kind of being like, not a bunch of like big hits really or anything. Kind of like a little bit underlooked at with the Bethesda acquisition. And then out of nowhere, Tango's just like, we're kicking 2023 off for the game out of nowhere that people love. I'm sure they're thrilled. Prexim, Game Pass allowing games like Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and Pentiment to exist is amazing. I agree. Do you think these kind of games are the answer to padding out time cycles, longer and longer AAA dev cycles? I absolutely agree with you, Prexim. We know literally Pentiment wouldn't exist without Game Pass. Like Josh Sawyer himself, the guy that made the game, he literally said verbatim, word for word, direct quote, I would have never pitched this game if it wasn't for Game Pass. Like he literally said that. He said I would have never went to a regular publisher because he didn't think he'd be able to get it made. Like if he just went to, because they were, independent, if he just went to EA, if he just went to Activision, he didn't think he could ever get Pentiment made because when there's no subscription model, you're so dependent on, you live and die by how many units a game sells. And I actually agree with Josh Sawyer. I think if he went to EA, they wouldn't have funded it. I think if he went to Activision, they wouldn't have funded it. They wanted an investment, like a return on pure sales for their investment, which makes sense. If you're only selling games, you absolutely need to get a profit on those games. So I agree with him. And he said he only felt confident pitching it because Game Pass, it made things, you could be a little bit riskier because it's about a subscription model and not just how many units did you sell. So I think Game Pass absolutely allows for a little bit more creative freedom. Now, that doesn't mean unlimited creative freedom on budgets. I'm seeing some people be like, Game Pass means you can just make these giant AAA $100 million games and just wing it. I still don't think that's true. I think the big, giant budget AAA games you're going to have to, unfortunately, be a little bit safer with. Doesn't mean you can't experiment, but you're going to have to be a little bit safer because there's so much money behind it. But these smaller size games, these Groundeds, these Pentiments, these Hi-Fi Rushes, you can really experiment there because it's just going into the subscription and let's see what happens with it. So yeah, I do think this is a huge answer to that. I made a tweet about this. If I was Microsoft, I'd be encouraging all my first-party studios to make these size games. All of them. 343, you want to make a smaller, non-AAA game and try something totally different? Dude, go for it. You can get this thing out in 2 years? Do it. Coalition, you want to make a smaller, non-AAA game you think you can get out in 2 years? It's totally different? Dude, go for it. I'd be telling literally every studio do it. Now, I'd give them limits. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, hey, spend $100 million on this random freaking thing and let's see what happens. Obviously not the case. But if they wanted to have a small team within the studio, right? Because we know Hi-Fi Rush wasn't a massive team. We know Pentiment was a super small team. We know that I'm sure some other stuff's coming up is going to be a little bit smaller. If there was like, hey, you have like 20, 30 devs or whatever in the studio that want to branch off and do something on the AA budget and make something totally different and you think you can get this thing out in 2 years, I would be telling all of them to do it. Because that's just more stuff to hit Game Pass. Because we know that these AAA games are taking 4, 5, 6 years. How much better is it if you could have, 343? I'm just using a random example here. But let's say the next Halo game, let's say it takes 5 years. But how cool would it be if you could get something from 343 in the meantime, in 2 years, from like 30 people there, that costs a lot less, and you could put it on the service and be like, here's another 343 game that's not Halo. Dude, yes. Microsoft should absolutely be pushing that. You can't do that as much when you don't have a subscription model, but with their specific model, yes, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Let me make sure there wasn't a super chat. I don't think there was, but part of me feels like I did. No, okay. Next free question, where we at? A lot of love for Hi-Fi Rush. Sasuja says Hi-Fi Rush with a bunch of hard eyes. I agree with you. Great game. Red Dead Series is saying hello. What's up, Red Dead Series? JCat, I feel like this chat was shadow dropped. I had no idea it was going to happen. It did. I very much apologize, JCat. Like I said, I usually give an hour notice before every stream. I did this one in 15 minutes. I had to wing it. I apologize. It was my fault with the with the reorganization of the room, and it's probably still going to change. B-Rex, this isn't true. I keep seeing this. All those games were in development prior to the Xbox acquisition. No, Pentiment wasn't. I don't know why people keep saying this. Pentiment was not in development before they were acquired by Obsidian, or before Obsidian was acquired. Josh Sawyer himself has said this directly from Josh's mouth. Josh is the one who made Pentiment. He can't be mistaken on this. The guy made the game. I don't know why this has become a talking point. I've tried to correct it as much as I can. I have a feeling that B-Rex Media may be a little biased, considering they're also saying it's the most 7 out of 10 game they've ever played, which also doesn't reflect what most people feel. I'm not trying to roast you, B-Rex, but those two comments back to back look a little suspicious. Not that someone can't feel like it's a 7 out of 10 game, but the incorrect information about Pentiment and then right afterwards calling Hi-Fi the most 7 out of 10 game, it looks a little suspicious. I'm just going to be honest with you. But no, Pentiment was not in development before the acquisition. It was not. I believe Hi-Fi Rush probably was. I believe that probably was. But I don't see how that doesn't, because this is another discussion point I've seen. I've seen some people being like, Microsoft doesn't have anything to do with Hi-Fi Rush. That's a lie. They've owned Obsidian for quite a while, which means they were paying for this, or they were owned Bethesda for quite a while, which means they were paying to get this game made. So even if it started development prior to Xbox, Xbox was there for a lot of the development cycle of this game. This game hasn't been in development for 5 years. This was a brief, short window development cycle. So Microsoft was on board for much of that dev cycle. And Pentiment, again, did not start development before they were acquired. No, it did not. JCat. Oh, okay. You're responding to them. Khalid, I thought it was fine for what it was, but nothing really impressed me personally. Hi-Fi Rush looks like a little gem, though, and people are loving it, so that is a nice surprise. Yeah, so about the Developer Direct in general. What I loved about the Developer Direct was the format. The format was excellent. That's the main thing that I talked about. In terms of the games that were there, that's going to hugely vary, because you're right on, Khalid. Like, I could see some people, you know, in terms of like the actual games themselves, not loving that presentation, right? If you're not super interested in Redfall, for example, then, you know, that was a big part of the show. If you're not super interested in Forza, I think that's totally fair. Like being like, yeah, you know, the games themselves didn't really wow me. Totally fair. The main thing that I find a huge success about the Developer Direct was the format. The format is a win for Xbox, especially compared to, you know, let's be honest, some of their past presentations have just not been great. They used to do this thing called, I think, Inside Xbox. It wasn't great. You know, I'm just going to be honest. I feel bad for anyone that worked on that show. I'm not trying to be insulting or anything, but it never really just caught on. The format never really worked. This format for Developer Direct is so good. Like, if I was Microsoft, I would definitely plan on at least 2 of these per year, highlighting games that are coming soon. You know, I don't think Developer Direct is the place to show a bunch of games that are 2 years away, because I had some people doing, like, responding with that. They want it to be more of a Nintendo Direct style. I disagree with that for this specific format. I think their E3 show or whatever, their big yearly showcase should be that. That should be where they're like, hey, here's games much further out. But I love this idea around Developer Direct, maybe twice a year or whatever. More would be even better, but at least twice a year of being like, hey, in the next 4 to 5 months, these games that are close that we can show a lot of because they're close now, we're going to sit down with a handful of teams and really let them, no fluff, no Phil coming out here talking for 10 minutes. I love Phil, but you know what I mean? Not him just talking about random stuff. No padding like, you know, here's a random Game Pass ad or here's like a random trailer this. Like, love this format. Next 4 or 5 months, we're going to tell you all about these games. We're going to show you a ton of new footage about these games and really show you, here's what you're playing in the next few months. Love the format. Flowed well. The production values were great. The stream quality was excellent. So that was a huge win. But Khalid, you're spot on. I could totally see a lot of people watching this that aren't specifically interested in Redfall or Forza or anything and being like, yeah, the content wasn't for me. Makes sense. But I did love the format. I thought the format itself was a huge win. I think there was a super chat from JCat, which I really appreciate, JCat. You don't need to do that. A couple of them. Highlander with a 5. If Microsoft does not get Activision, do you see a decline in Game Pass? What do you think plan B is? I've been having some mixed thoughts on this Activision deal recently. I almost wonder if they shouldn't have gone for Activision. How much time and money has Microsoft wasted on this Activision thing? I almost wonder if internally there's a little bit of regret over this. Now, I don't know, and if they end up getting Activision, it's probably going to be a huge win for them in the long term. But me looking at this as an outsider, maybe if they could have got this to go through real quick, it would have been like great. But sitting on the outside now, you're like, you guys are going to be dragged down in this for years, guys. It ain't done. This thing ain't done until next year at the soonest. It ain't wrapping in 2023. And it's already been a year. So you got caught up in years of legal battles. Think about how much time that Phil and other people are having to spend on this, because they're having to give statements. They're having to be like, how are we going to position this? What's our argument here? How are we countering Sony's stuff here? Like, trust me, Phil's spending a lot of time on this deal. So you have just a huge time sink for Xbox, Phil, Microsoft in general. You have a fortune tied into this, $70 freaking billion tied into this. And then Microsoft just laid off 10,000 people. And I'm not saying it's because of the Activision deal, but I'm saying you just let go of 10,000 people because of what you felt you had to do for cost-saving cuts. We can debate if that's true or not. I'm just saying from their point of view. And now you're going to take on another 10,000 people when this thing finally does wrap up. And by the time you wrap it up, you're going to have so many concessions signed that you're going to get very little exclusive content out of this outside of new IPs. Call of Duty is going to have to be everywhere for an extremely long amount of time if they ever get this to go through. And I won't be surprised if it gets way more aggressive than just Call of Duty. I will not be surprised if they're going to start being like in every Blizzard game and all sorts of stuff. So it's like, dude, what is really the play here? Is it just Call of Duty on Game Pass? Great. But how many people do you really think you're going to pull away completely from PlayStation just to play Call of Duty on Game Pass? Because the longer this goes, the more doubtful I am that you're just going to get tens of millions of people to be like, you know what, I'm not buying this on PlayStation anymore. I'm selling my PlayStation, I'm buying an Xbox and playing Call of Duty on Game Pass. The longer this goes, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, and the deeper into this gen we get, a lot of people have already bought PlayStation 5s. There's still going to be years worth of people buying PlayStation 5s until this deal's done. And then who even says with these concessions it's going to be Call of Duty immediately on Game Pass for free? We don't know how these concessions are going to end up working out. It's like, dude, you sunk a lot of time, you sunk a lot of money, and will the payoff be as big as you think? It might be, guys. I'm not declaring for you that this isn't going to be a massive win. It might be looked back on in the past if they get this as the biggest win in Xbox history. It's just the longer this goes, the more I'm like, wonder if you could have spent your time and money in a lot better ways than this. And I'm sure it looked great at first to them because it felt great to me at first too. Like as an outside observer, when they first announced this, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like Microsoft's going to get all these IPs. They're going to get all these studios. We thought this thing was going to be wrapped up quick in a year. And then none of that happens. None of it happens. So we'll see how this goes, man. A lot more mixed thoughts on this Activision deal now than I had a year ago. Now, if they don't, let's just say worst case scenario, and they can't even get Activision, because that is still in the cards, guys. We don't really know how this is all going to shake out. Do I see a decline in Game Pass? No. I think almost zero people have signed up for Game Pass for Activision because there's zero Activision games on there right now. So I think a decline in Game Pass, no. I don't see why anyone would have bought into Game Pass specifically for Activision at any time because they didn't own these studios and none of the games were on there. It was more like a maybe situation at one point in time. Now, do I think that the total subscriber number that they could possibly hit takes a hit? Yes, because even with what I just said, where I question if you're going to really get tens and tens and tens of millions of people to just drop Call of Duty on PlayStation and just come over to Xbox because of Call of Duty specifically, I do doubt that because you can still buy the game on PlayStation and really you're talking $70 a year. You know, $70 is a lot of money, but to a random Call of Duty player that already has a PS5, are they really sweating over $70? Because it's all it is. It's $70 over the course of 12 months. I don't know how much they're really sweating just dropping $70 and buying it on PlayStation. So, but there definitely would be people that would subscribe to Game Pass specifically for Call of Duty, I'm sure. And I think actually the bigger hit, if they don't get Activision Blizzard, I've been thinking this for a while. I don't think the bigger Game Pass hit, I don't even think it is Call of Duty, guys. I think it's Blizzard. Because I think Blizzard could drive serious subscriber growth on PC. Like, massively so. Because Blizzard games are not the exact same thing as Call of Duty, where it's like I said, how many people are you really going to get to pull away from dropping $70 on a random PS5 game? Blizzard's a whole different thing because their biggest player base is PC. It's a platform Microsoft's already on. So they're not trying to pull someone from PlayStation to now you're signing up to Game Pass. They're trying to get them PC players that are already playing Blizzard games that aren't on Game Pass to now join Game Pass. I think Blizzard potentially could be the bigger deal here, specifically for Game Pass, if Blizzard really does have big new IPs coming, which there are some hints that they do, if those could be very successful on PC, if they started putting things like future WoW expansions into Game Pass, like that could have a serious impact on subscriptions. So it will be interesting. If they don't get them, again, I don't think it impacts like current subscribers. I do think it would impact future growth. And what do I think plan B is? I don't know if there is a plan B. I don't know. I have no idea. I see some people be like, well, if they get denied, they're just going to take that $70 billion and try and buy EA or something. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now, will they spend some of that money on getting studios? Absolutely. They're not going to. If they get denied Activision, Microsoft's going to go for 0 other publishers. It's going to be a strong message to the entire industry. Publishers are off the table. If that happens, it means you won't see Sony go for any publishers. You're not going to see anyone go for publishers because you risk getting tied down like they are and then not getting anything in the end. So if that happens, let's just say a crazy scenario, FTC, Europe, whatever, shuts this deal down completely, that means all these publishers are off the board for platform holders. Doesn't mean I don't think that publishers can combine, but I think Sony ain't buying any publishers and Microsoft ain't buying any publishers because it's going to be a message, you guys can't do this. At least not until there's changes within the FTC or Europe, for example. So plan B, I think they would just buy some independent studios, but they wouldn't spend $70 billion on independent studios. You know, they might drop a significant amount of money, maybe even. Maybe they take $10 billion and go buy independently owned studios, but they ain't going to drop $70 billion. That money will go to something else. JCat with a 10. What's the beat on Fire Emblem Engage in the US? In Japan, it was flat versus Three Houses, although digital is likely much higher due to the voucher program. In UK, it was down 30% versus Three Houses. JCat, first of all, thanks for the super chat. You never have to do that. You help me mod this channel, and that alone is more than enough help. You don't need to help me financially either, but I do appreciate that super chat, JCat. What I'm seeing in the US, and again, take this with a grain of salt, but what I'm seeing in the US, Fire Emblem Engage, I don't think is going to be, a hugely more impressive result than Three Houses. I think that we need to really question if Engage Lifetime is going to sell as much as Three Houses. I am kind of doubtful on that. I started Fire Emblem Engage. I got pulled away from it. I'm going to go right back. But the Hi-Fi Rush Shadow Drop was too exciting for me to not jump into. But I think Engage is good when I'm playing so far. I think that some people might be a little turned off with some of the reviews saying that like story feels like a step down from Three Houses. Some of the social aspects feel like a step down from Three Houses. I think people really loved that about the Fire Emblem Three Houses. I think they loved the Harry Potter-esque feel to it. I know that the story is nothing like Harry Potter, but it was like that, you know, you're in school and you can make friends and like there was a lot of those kind of elements in Three Houses. I don't know that it was like the hardcore strategy gameplay of Three Houses that made that game so successful. In fact, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it was the more RPG elements that made that franchise really blow up the way it did. So I think that might, in retrospect, be a bit of a mistake that they seemingly cut back on some of that stuff with Engage. And if you don't see Engage end up selling the level of what Three Houses did Lifetime, I think they might really reconsider what they do with the next Fire Emblem in terms of like leaning a lot into those RPG elements. That doesn't mean you have to cut back on the strategy elements at all. It's not what I'm saying. But I think they might be like, okay, we need to make sure we really have the social aspects in there that people really liked. And we need to really make sure we up the RPG side of the strategy RPG. So we'll see. But yeah, JCat, if you're asking me right now how I think it's going to perform in the US, I would say not hugely better than Three Houses. Maybe flat, maybe worst case down a bit. I don't think it'll be like a massive drop or anything, but I also don't think that Engage is going to sell like way better than Three Houses did. No, I don't expect that. You know, maybe flatter, maybe down a little bit, or maybe up a little bit. You know what I mean? Right in that window. Flat, up a bit, down a bit, but not like on the huge end of the spectrums of either. Not hugely more successful or hugely negatively more. Highlander with a 2 super chat. I want all Microsoft shows to be like this. Well, I want the developer directs to be like this. I still think that the E3 show, or whatever they want to call it, their big summer showcase, I still like the idea of that being more, here's some crazy hype announcements for the next. I personally didn't love the 12-month announcement thing of last E3, I'll be honest with you. I know some people raved about that, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? These are all opinions. My opinion can be considered wrong by you, and that's completely fine. But I didn't necessarily love the idea of every E3 show is just going to be the next 12 months, because I think sometimes announcing games further out is important to the platform for just driving hype. So I don't love that idea. I think sometimes you should announce a game that's 2 years away, you know, case by case basis. But like, let's just say a hypothetical Gear 6 is 2 years away. Do I think they should wait until the year Gear 6 is going to come out to announce it? No. If I was Phil Spencer, Microsoft, I'd announce that game 2 years before it came out. But again, not everyone's going to agree with that. So I like the idea of the E3 show still just being like, you know, I don't think you should announce the game 5 years beforehand, but you get what I'm saying. Like a little bit further out announcements. Have E3 be like, here's the big, this represents the future of the platform. That's the way I would see the showcase. This is the future of the platform. And some stuff soon, but like, this is it. Like, this is your overarching view of the whatever the future of what we envision Xbox as. And then these developer directs, you know, next 4 or 5 months worth of games, you know, 6 months worth of games with real deep dives. That's the way I like it. I think that would be the perfect balance for them, but we'll see. I think they took a lot of good feedback though to the developer direct. Overall, most people seem to love the format. Like I said, some people didn't necessarily love the content, but I saw very few complaints about the format. I didn't see many people being like, wow, that format sucked, you know, which you did see for Inside Xbox. I'm trying not to be mean to Inside Xbox again, but you would see that when those Inside Xbox or whatever they were called episodes would air. You'd see people be like, even Xbox fans be like, man, that sucked. It was more like loved the format, either loved or didn't care about the content in it, but most of the format opinions were very positive. All right. Where are we at for 3 questions? How long have I been going? A while, but I don't care. I'm still going to go for a little bit. So stick around if you want. If not, I totally get it. But I'm having fun with this chat, and there's a lot of great discussion, and I don't want to bail. And I want to make sure that B-Rex Media didn't take what I was saying earlier as mean. I never want to be mean, guys. So I apologize. B-Rex, you might have already left. If you're still here, I was not trying to be mean to you. So to be very clear with that, I feel bad. That's not what I was trying to say. I was just trying to be like, you know, I don't know if I agree with what you're coming with. Hey, some of you guys are so mean to me on Twitter, I can push back a little bit occasionally, okay? A little bit. I can push back a bit. I wasn't trying to be mean, but some of the stuff you guys say to me is wild. So I think that was fairly mild. All right. Pretentious Carrot. There's a lot of popping up the game because Xbox has been dead. this is another one of those. I just don't think I agree with it. It's just a great game, but I think it's a fun small game. People already throwing it as a Game of the Year contender is a little silly in my opinion. I mean, I'll be shocked if this game's not in my top 10 at the end of the year. I'm going to be real with you. As long as the quality stays as high as it is, and I know that it's an amazing year coming up, so it very well could slip out. But I will say I'm like so positive on this game that, yeah, I'll be honest with you, pretentious. I'll be surprised if this isn't in my top 10. Now, Game of the Year, I would agree. Calling it a Game of the Year, like outright a Game of the Year contender, it is way too early for that. Way too early. There is so many giant, huge, awesome-looking games coming this year. I agree. It's way too early to say Hi-Fi Rush is going to be in like your finalists for Game of the Year because, bro, there is like a stacked year coming up. But once we start getting to like overall top 10, I don't know, man. I think this game is legitimately great. I will be not shocked at all if this year ends, it's in my top 10. It's not a lock. Like you said, we're still early. It's January. I'm very doubtful this will be my actual Game of the Year. But will I be surprised if we're at the end of December and I'm making my top 10 list and Hi-Fi Rush is in it? I won't be the least surprised at all. In fact, I think there's a good chance of it. But that's going to depend on the person. But overall, like, a lot of people really love this game. Soldier Boy 3064. I mean, like, if we're talking actual Game of the Year, which is what you're pointing out, which I agree with. I mean, dude, we got Zelda coming. We got Starfield coming. We got Spider-Man coming. We got Final Fantasy 16 coming. We got Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming. Like, yeah, you're right. To call it an outright Game of the Year contender, guys, too early for that. Top 10, though. Like I said, I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised if it's in my top 10. Soldier Boy 3064. Any excite over 3 Ashes of Creation? Soldier Boy, I apologize. I actually am not super familiar with what this game is. So I apologize, Soldier. My answer to this would be I am not excited for the game. I'm sorry, but it's not because I think it looks bad or anything. I actually don't really know what this game is. So that would be why, Soldier Boy. But that would be the only reason. Andre asks me about the PSVR 2. My answer was like what it was earlier. I just don't know. I don't know how to read PSVR 2. I think there was a super chat. Let me hit this super chat. We got a 10 coming in. A 10 from Highlander. Very kind of you, Highlander, with the 10. With the hard look at Microsoft trying to get Activision, do you see the same happening to Sony if they try to make any acquisition? What happens to Activision if the deal is stopped? Yeah, that's why you're seeing Sony not really acquire anybody right now. If Sony goes for any acquisitions right now, it's going to be like smaller ones that they think they can probably get away with and won't really influence any of this stuff. Sony's way too embedded into this whole court case to be like, you know, we're just going to go try and buy EA. Not that they would want to anyways, but I've said before, like, that immediately shuts down this whole conversation. Because the conversation piece that's being used to battle Microsoft on this is that getting Activision would put them into too strong of a position with Game Pass subscribers, you know, streaming and all of that stuff. Like, it would just give Microsoft too much ammunition in the fight moving forward. If Sony comes out and announces while this is going on, yeah, we're getting EA, suddenly it's like, you can't say that Microsoft would be in an unfair position at all anymore. Because you would have the literal, you know, if you just want to be honest, they're even ahead of Nintendo if you want to talk about like overall the history of video games, financially speaking. Like we talked about in this chat, Sony is the most consistent platform holder for getting consoles over 100 million unit sales in terms of the home console business. Nintendo's had some massive successes. We cannot discount Nintendo. They're an absolute beast. If you look at Switch, if you look at the original DS, if you look at the Wii. But, you know, we have to be honest, they've also had their Wii U's and their GameCubes. Sony is by far the most consistent of we get platforms to over 100 million or close to 100 million. So if you had them come out and then be like, yeah, and we're getting EA, or yeah, and we're getting Ubisoft, all of a sudden it's like, if I'm Microsoft, I'm like, what the F are you talking about that I'm going to be in an unfair position? You have someone that greatly outsells us every single generation that is now getting the second biggest publisher or whatever. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Sony ain't going to go for it. anyone big while this is going on, because it immediately gives Microsoft strength in their argument. Now, could I see Sony going for like a small independent studio during this? Sure. In fact, they already have. I believe the Haven acquisition was done after Microsoft announced theirs. Maybe even Bungie. I think Bungie was done afterwards. But again, we're talking independent studios, not publishers. So if Sony makes any acquisitions while this is all still going, it ain't going to be Square Enix. It ain't going to be Ubisoft. It's going to be someone like that. It's going to be like a Haven-sized studio, or at most a Bungie-sized or something. Now, what happens to Activision if the deal stopped? Real bad things. Activision's had some actual hits this past year. Overwatch 2 is still doing really well. I see some people post that they think Overwatch 2 is dead. It's not. We talked about this on the last chat. It's like still consistently in the top 10 most played games on Xbox, and that's not even its main platform, which is PC. Overwatch 2 is definitely not dead. Modern Warfare 2 has been a huge hit. Like, they've had some hits, but I just think Activision, the core way they run their business, is flawed. I think being so dependent on Call of Duty is a massive problem, and we started talking about this years ago. If you guys have been watching this chat or following me on Twitter, I've talked for years how being so reliant on just Call of Duty is a massive problem. If your whole business is built on one IP, you're freaking screwed if it messes up. And we saw that happen with Vanguard. Vanguard was a miss for the franchise in terms of sales, and that hurt Activision real bad. You got to be able to balance this with some other IP. And so I think just the whole way Activision run is they are what's crazy is that they are like the most, they're the biggest publisher right now in terms of financials for third parties, specifically because of Call of Duty, but I also think they're by far the most volatile. I could see a crazy situation happening where they have a couple Call of Duties mess up, and all of a sudden they're just freaking in free fall in terms of financial situation. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think they're kind of screwed if this doesn't happen, to be honest with you. I don't think that means Activision goes out of business, but I would say I think Activision has some rough waters over the next 5 years if this acquisition doesn't go through, which is a part of why I think they really want Microsoft to buy them. I don't think it's a coincidence that you're seeing Bobby K and all of Activision be like, please buy us, Microsoft, because I think they know the exact same thing I'm talking about. They're too reliant on one brand, way too reliant. And I think part of the thought process is under Microsoft, they can be a little bit more experimental. Doesn't mean they can't still make Call of Duty, but I think you might see a little more variety start coming out because you're a little less risky. You can be a little bit more riskier when you're owned by one of the biggest companies on the planet and they have a subscription model. Right now, it's like they live and die by Call of Duty. But you never want your business to be in that position where you're living and dying by one game. That is way too risky, man. Even with Call of Duty, even with the beast Call of Duty is, it's still way too risky. Where are we at? Anton Aziz, Benji, hi, I was wondering, what do you think will happen in regards to Starfield as far as release date and a preview event? Anton, this is hard to say. I will say that Forza not getting a date definitely makes the idea that Starfield's delayed possibly a little more realistic. I think that the fact that didn't get a date is a bit of a red flag for Starfield. Because what I'm wondering, and I don't know, now I'm wondering if Forza's June. And part of the reason why they didn't date this game, I wonder if internally they do have a date on Forza. And part of the reason they didn't date it was kind of to soften the blow for whenever they're like, hey, Starfield's delayed. Know what I mean? So, Anton, I am starting to come around to the idea Starfield might get delayed. I don't think significantly so, but it might not be by June. And put it this way, if they put Forza in June, like at this event, if they're like, hey, Forza releases in June, I think everyone would be like, Starfield's delayed. No one thinks that Forza and Starfield are both going to come out in the same month. So I wonder if internally they know this game's June and they're going to wait until after they show Starfield, because we know that they're making that separate Starfield showcase. They even reiterated that yesterday. I wonder if they're doing that to soften the blow, because maybe during that showing they do finally date Starfield and it is delayed out past that June window, And the way they can help soften that impact is be like, hey, Starfield's now, July, August, September, whatever it ends up being. But, here's Forza in June. So, now Forza's got its release date. I won't be shocked at all if that happens, Anton. I won't be shocked at all if that's what's going on. So, we'll see. You never know. Maybe Starfield still makes June, but Forza not getting that date's a red flag. And I think it's more attached to Starfield than it is Forza itself. I think they might know when Forza's coming out. Now, and I could be wrong. This is just theories. So that's my thought on the release date. Preview event, I won't be surprised if they have a preview event right around the time they do that showcase. So we'll see. We don't really know when the Starfield showcase is going to be. But I won't be surprised if you have hands-on previews right around that. Probably a little after. I don't think it'll be the same time. I think they'll show Starfield and then let hands-on happen, but probably within a few weeks of whenever that showing is. Chris, how does PlayStation and Nintendo compete with Xbox if ActiBliz eventually goes through? Going forward, even without ActiBliz, Xbox is going to start having a pretty crazy output. Add that on top. And, yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, the longer this goes, Chris, the more I question how much Call of Duty is really going to impact things. And I know that sounds crazy to you guys because you're like, look at how big of a brand Call of Duty is. But if it really remains fully multi-platform with no strings attached, I don't think that has the hardware moving impact they think it does. Or the Game Pass moving that they think it does. I think it does for sure. Guys, whenever I say this, that does not mean that I'm telling you, it means they're going to only get 1 million more subscribers because Call of Duty. No. Trust me, I think it'll have a big impact on Game Pass subscribers. But will it be like this crazy situation where suddenly PlayStation is just hurt so bad by Call of Duty being on Game Pass? I don't know about that. Exclusive? Game changer. The fact it's still on PlayStation day and date, it sounds like it's going to be day and date with feature parity and no issues at all. I don't know. I don't know how many PlayStation fans you're really going to pull away from just buying Call of Duty on PlayStation for $70 once a year. You know what I mean? I don't know. Now, Chris, if all of a sudden they get Activision Blizzard, and all of a sudden you're seeing Activision pumping out new IPs, things that we never imagined from them. It ain't just about Call of Duty. There's multiple new IPs from just even the Activision side. And you've got that are exclusive. And you've got Blizzard coming out with exclusives. Okay, then we're cooking with gas. Then we're like, yeah, all right, Activision Blizzard could seriously move the needle on some stuff. But we really need to get away from thinking about this deal as really being just about, in terms of, I know King's a huge element here that none of us talk about. That's secretly one of the reasons why Microsoft wants them is because of the mobile side. But, we're talking about the console and PC space here. It's going to have to be about a lot more than Call of Duty for this to be worth it, in my opinion. It needs to be about a lot more than just Call of Duty. This deal needs to not just be about, hey, look, now we have Call of Duty on Game Pass. Because if that's the way they're looking at it, and I think Phil and them are smarter than that, I don't know that it's worth it. But if they're like, listen, we're going to have new IPs coming. We're going to have all sorts of awesome stuff besides Call of Duty that we can make exclusive coming. If that's the way they want to approach it, could be a huge, huge deal. Yeah, it could be. Could be. Jay Rich, what's your opinion on The Last of Us sales over the past 2 weeks? Sales from both games have jumped. Yeah, great news for The Last of Us. The show is like crazy, guys. We talked last week about the initial ratings, how huge they were. Then for episode 2, they were, and I told you guys this. I said, I expect episode 2 viewership to be much higher. I tweeted that, plus we talked about it on the chat, because the way the first episode was so well received. Not only did episode 2 have a boost in viewership, it had the biggest growth in the entire history of HBO. The whole thing. Think about how long HBO's been around, guys. HBO's not a new channel. It's not a new... I know that HBO Max is kind of newer, but HBO itself's been around for a long time. The biggest jump from episode 1 to episode 2 viewership in the entire history of HBO. Wow. I expect episode 3 to be even up from episode 2. So it's like, I don't think you're going to see another 22% jump, but I do think you'll see another jump even for episode 3. So this is just a colossal hit for Sony, colossal hit for HBO. Now, my thoughts on the sales, I'm not surprised to see big boosts. If you guys have seen huge boosts on both part 1 and part 2, to me, this is not surprising with how well received the show is. I do want to caution guys, there's some huge percentages out there you're saying like they jumped by 300%. Keep in mind that was from a pretty low number. So it's not like we're talking about like The Last of Us is now selling like 1 million units a week. You know what I mean? It's not like that sort of a situation, but definitely a jump. And I think that'll go through the whole course of the show. If it continues to be as well received as it is, I think over the coming weeks, The Last of Us will still just steadily sell more units. Again, don't expect all of a sudden this thing is topping NPD charts. That ain't going to happen. But, over the course, as this show's on for 9 episodes, that's 9 total weeks of show. Yeah, I think just over that time, you'll see The Last of Us keep selling and selling and selling and selling. So it's definitely going to boost the game. No doubt about it. Slappy Face has a great point. Stalker 2 is this year too. Yep. Yeah, great year for Xbox in terms of exclusive stuff coming, it looks like. Oni X, it's crazy how Microsoft can save money on marketing with games. Oh yeah, I think we talked about that in the super chat. Yeah. Danger Man, only deal for Jedi Survivor's been with AMD for PC. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm shocked there was no console deal on this game because the first game was a mega hit. And Jedi Survivor, I think, is going to be huge too. Again, I wonder if EA just didn't want one. Maybe they didn't want to be associated with one platform. You never know. Like, maybe they didn't want that on EA's end, or maybe they were asking way too much money. That's the other thing. Maybe EA was like, hey, if you want this marketing deal, you're going to pay us a crazy number. And both Sony and Microsoft were like, nah, game's going to be big, but we ain't paying you that much. You never know. Could have been either one of those scenarios. Fernando Harada, Benji, I have a hot take. Okay, let's see. I have mixed opinions on hot takes. You guys know me. I try to be a little like even keeled, but let's see. I see Microsoft getting credit for games that they haven't pitched. I think it will take years, at least 5, to see the full effects of the acquisition. What do you think? Yeah, no, you are right. Most of these acquisitions, it will take time to see. And I think we're starting to see that right now. Like right now, we're starting to see that kick in. Because a lot of these, I mean, it takes years, guys. To make a game, you don't make a game in a year. We've talked about this. AAA games take forever. So to see the full effects of this acquisition spree, it'll take years. When did Bethesda finalize? What year was that? Was that 2020? Was that 2020? 2021, guys. Bethesda didn't even get finalized till a year ago. And then some of these studios were also in like 2020, 2019. So yeah, like to see the full effects for it, Fernando, this is a correct hot take. Some of this, to see the full effects, it takes years. Just like with Sony with Bungie. Sony bought Bungie. They bought Haven. You haven't really seen that pay out yet because they're brand new acquisitions. You could actually even say that about Bluepoint. Bluepoint hasn't put anything out since the acquisition. You could say same thing about Housemarque, right? Anytime you're making a new acquisition, you don't just see that turn around in a year and suddenly it's like, yeah, this is what we paid for 1 year later. It takes time, right? Bungie's going to have to make some stuff under Sony. Housemarque's going to have to make some stuff. Bluepoint's going to have to make some stuff. Same exact thing with Microsoft. It takes a while. You can't expect an acquisition to immediately just have impact. So you're right. Yeah, it takes some time. Yep. You're just now starting to see it ramp up for Xbox. All right. Was there a super chat? I think there might have been. I'm still going to go for about like 15 minutes because there's a ton of questions in chat today. Super chats. Benji here with a 5. Benji, Tom Henderson was saying he hasn't heard anything about a Pro PS5 console. Not surprised. Wonder how long that was going. Hopefully not long. My mic cable fell out. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Let me see OBS. Yeah, you guys can hear me. Sorry. All right, one or two more. Superfrost Benji, hope you're doing well. I was not expecting these ratings for Dead Space. Beyond excited. Yeah, great reviews coming in for Dead Space. Great reviews. I'm hoping that helps sales. You know, the tracking pre-launch, I'll say, like the social metrics, not ultra strong. So I'm hoping that these huge reviews really push it. Ooh, Dangerman has a different take than me. Dangerman thinks Starfield's going to be early April. That is interesting. That'd be cool. How wild would that be? I'm leaning more, Dangerman, that Starfield gets delayed. But that'd be fun. I'd love to see it. But I'm still leaning towards it's delayed. I don't think it's an ultra long delay. I see some people being like, it's going to be November. I don't think so. If Starfield's delayed, I think it's just like slightly. Like I think it'll be like a July, August, or September release. Like a couple months. Slappy Face Benji, how likely do you think the rumors of a Scalebound revival are? The way I view the Scalebound revival is that, because there's always rumors about this, it seems like every year, Scalebound coming back would be one of those things that I do not predict will happen. Like right now, Benji, do you predict Scalebound's going to come back? No. It is, again, though, one of those things that will be quite literally 0% shocked if they announce it. And the main reason is this. Microsoft wants more Japanese games. We absolutely know this for a fact. They have openly said it themselves, as well as lots of reports about Microsoft trying to sign Japanese games. So we know, A, Microsoft wants games from Japan. And then B, we know that Kamiya, I think that's how you say his name. I apologize if it's wrong. We know that that was literally his dream game. He literally said Scalebound was his dream project. So A, you've got a publisher that wants Japanese games. B, you have a prominent Japanese developer in Platinum, where literally one of the main dudes at Platinum, it's his dream project. I will be 0% surprised. Again, I don't consider this likely. If I was to predict it, I would say no, Scalebound does not come back. But if Microsoft came out on stage at E3 and they said, we're doing it, we're back in on Scalebound, we're restarting this project, I will be 0% shocked. Not in the slightest. Not at all. I'd be like, yep, I totally understand why that happened. Yep. So we'll see. Again, I don't think it happens, but I won't be shocked. I won't be shocked even remotely if that gets announced. But I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't be expecting that to happen. I agree with Dangerman. I really think Game Pass makes AA-style games more viable. I couldn't agree more. I absolutely think it's great for that. You know, there's a lot of debate about Game Pass, like what it's good for the industry, what it's bad for the industry. I think there's some worry about how it might impact AAA game sales, putting AAA games on it day one. But if we're talking AA and indie, I think that's really where it's a big hit. I think from indie to AA-sized games, Game Pass is literally basically nothing but good. I think it markets these games far more than they would ever get marketed outside of it. I think it makes it way more engaging and way more word of mouth on these games, period. Plus, they get paid by Microsoft to be on there. I think where there's a lot more question is how much of a good thing it is for AAA games. There, I think you can have some debate. But indie to AA, I literally see Game Pass as nothing but positive. Like, nothing. It's doing nothing but good things for your game. And you've seen most indie devs say that as well. Most of the pushback you've heard from some publishers about Game Pass is around the AAA stuff. That's where it's a little bit more nebulous. But those indies to AA, yeah, Game Pass is very good for those size games. Sony has Shimigami, or not Shimigami, Spider-Man 2 and Stellar Blade for 2022. I'm very excited for Stellar Blade, actually. I think that game looks sick. Microsoft has Hi-Fi Rush, Tokyo Port, Age of Empires 2 and 4, Minecraft Legends, Redfall, Forza Motorsport, and Starfield, plus maybe Hellblade 2. If we're comparing the years out of what's announced right now, I would say that Sony has the biggest hit of everyone on the table, because I think Spider-Man 2 will be the biggest hit. Yes, even bigger than Starfield. in terms of raw sales, things get weird with Game Pass. Very weird. So, yeah, I don't know. But in terms of raw sales, I think Spider-Man's a bigger seller than Starfield even is. But I would say overall lineup, I would say Xbox has the better overall lineup. But again, Sony's isn't done. We don't know. There could still be some other stuff this year from Sony. So that's how I would rank it right now. Biggest hit in Sony's camp for sales. Better overall lineup, I would go Xbox. Peter 420, overall Sony won 2020 launch and 2022. Microsoft won 2021, and I do believe that will win 2023. This generation is going to be closer than expected. I think that's a pretty fair way of looking at it. Now, if we're talking about like console sales, it's actually Sony basically every year. I know Microsoft did have that long run of 3 consecutive quarters in the US outselling PlayStation. PlayStation, though, it's going to be the better selling platform. It is, even in 2023. PS5 is going to sell more consoles than Xbox, but globally. But I think you're talking more of like the whole factors combined. Game releases, plus console sales, plus things like engagement through Game Pass and things. I think that's a pretty fair way of looking at it. I think Microsoft did have a better 2021 than Sony did. And I think Sony did have a better launch than Xbox and clearly a better 2022. And yeah, 2023 right now in terms of the overall like release slate might look a little bit better for Xbox right now. I don't think that's an unfair take, Peter. Some people have differing opinions, but I think what you're saying is not unfair. I think it's a logical way to look at it. Yeah, so Danger Man, this is interesting. So what if the Coalition's next project that isn't Gears is smaller and gets shadow dropped? This has been one of the things that's rumored. I don't know that it is. We know that the Coalition's making a new IP. But one of the rumors is that it is smaller than like what a Gear 6 will be. I don't know if that means it's an AA-sized game. I don't know if it means it's going to be a Hi-Fi Rush or Pentiment or something style game. Pentiment's not even really AA. That team was so small. That was probably basically an indie game. Like in terms of like the staff on it. I know it wasn't indie because it had Microsoft behind it. But like in terms of the team size, Pentiment was borderline indie. Hi-Fi Rush seems to like fully be in that AA space. Coalition's game, there are rumors that it is smaller, that like whatever this new IP is. Doesn't mean it's tiny. If you play Hi-Fi Rush, it's not a very small game. Like it feels like a fully featured game. But we'll see. I don't know that for sure. But that is one of the reports that the new IP from the Coalition isn't necessarily a Gear 6 sized game. So I'm actually in favor of that because it means it might come out sooner. If it is a smaller project, that means we might see it sooner than we think. Peter's hyped for Dead Space reviews. Hogwarts Legacy previews are all positive. Yeah, that's going to be so big. So big. If you notice, I've done my best to stay out of the Hogwarts Legacy discourse. You know, I'll just say I'm going to play the game. And I don't think any of you guys are bad people if you play the game. Even if I disagree with J.K. Rowling. And again, but, you know, I stay out of that discourse. Red Gray, I think this is pretty unfair. What's up with Sony? They rely on Spider-Man and Marvel to keep people happy. I'm starting to feel I wasted money on PS5. I mean, this seems unfair to me. God of War was a mega hit, you know. Horizon Forbidden West did very, very well. You know, that doesn't feel fair to me at all. It ain't just about Marvel and Spider-Man. There's only been one Marvel game on the PlayStation 5. Miles Morales. In terms of like a new game. And that was cross-gen. You know, you can't say that Spider-Man's been carrying PS5 sales because it hasn't been on the platform really. It's been, you know, God of War, Horizon, third party, so I don't think that's fair. 1 or 2 more and I'm gone. Long stream. The last stream was long too, but you guys have been like really filling these chats up lately, which isn't a bad thing. I like doing the stream. I'm just saying, like, you know, people watch this later on too, so even if the viewership dips, people can bounce in and bounce out. But we're at like 2 hours. Holy crap. Okay, full 2 hours. One question, and I gotta go. I don't want to push a stream over 2 hours. People ain't gonna watch a 2-hour stream. I mean, maybe they will. Some of you guys are, but like, you know, that's a long stream. I mean, heck, I watch shows that are 4 hours long on YouTube, like the MMA Hour, but, you know, I don't know that everyone wants to watch me for 2 hours. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go for somebody that was late. Let's scroll down towards the bottom of the chat. Someone that didn't get a question. Wow, JCat has had to be on duty with, people are laughing about my mic. How long was I off? That's funny. I didn't know how long I was off. That is hilarious. Apparently I was gone for a while. That is so funny. Oh man, who knows how long I was gone? Oh, that is funny. Oh, apparently I was gone for a long time. Wow. Sorry, guys. Alright, well, I'll just call it there then. Wow, this is going to look hilarious. Sorry. Apparently I was, like, gone for a long time. I thought my mic cable only fell out for a second, but apparently it's gone for a long time. Well, we'll wrap it there, guys. Apologize to all the questions I answered and you guys didn't hear me. I might have been droning on for 30 minutes. You know? That just sucks. And I suck. Wow. What a fail. I am like the worst YouTuber on the planet, right? I mean, let's just be honest here. My God. Well, okay. I'm going to bounce. Sorry I wasted your guys' time. I really feel bad. Wow. There was even super chats I missed. Holy cow. Guys, I'm sorry. Dear God. I suck. I'm sorry, dude. I'm a failure. I don't know what else to say, dude. Wow. I apologize. Anyone that spent time on this or donated in super chats, I mean, hopefully you can even hear me right now, dude. I guess I need a new mic. I guess the cable's falling out. Oh, God. All right. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties. If you donated in super chat and I answered and, like, you guys didn't hear me, I'm really sorry. If you guys didn't hear my apologies to the other guy, I don't remember his name, was B something. I apologize to him. I might have been muted while I did that because I feel like I was kind of mean to him and I feel really bad about that. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm going to go now. I suck. Bye. Have a good one, guys. You guys are awesome, and I apologize for all the issues today. Bye. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you guys soon. All right.